This is a Media Lab podcast. Welcome to Putting It Together, the podcast that goes through the entire body of work of Stephen Sondheim, show by show and song by song. My name is Kyle Marshall, your self-described Sondheim expert. We're going back to Company here today, which is very exciting. It's, sad that the Broadway revival of Company has just closed. But I thought what would be great is having a guest on that could speak to that production in particular. Started over in London, transferred over to Broadway, and was very much spearheaded by Marion Elliott. And beyond the headlines of it being a female Bobby, there are other things within the show that are changed, altered, and updated for a modern audience. And so Diep Tran is here to talk about that, explore her history with the show, but also this song, Someone is Waiting, which I'll hazard a guess is maybe not a song that is most people's this is top two songs of the show, but yet it's still a fascinating exploration into the psyche of where Bobby is at inside the show at that point. So I might as well not waste any more time. Let's get into my conversation with Diep Tran about Someone is Waiting.
Someone is waiting, sweet as David, funny and charming as Peter, Larry. Someone is waiting, cute as Jamie, sassy as Harry.
Diep Tran, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You have a lot of honorifics here, because your writings appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Playbill, Salon, a bunch of other publications. You're a contributor to the book Rise, A Pop History of Asian America from the 90s to now, and you do continue to write about theater, film, television, so I'm super excited that you want to come and talk about Company for this episode.
Well, thank you for having me, because Company is one of those shows where I have a really long relationship to it, but I've never been able to write a personal thing about it, even though I've interviewed a good amount of people in the most recent revival on Broadway. Yeah. So I'm so glad someone's finally asked me for my thoughts on Company.
Well, let's jump into that then, before we do maybe theater as a general question. What is your history with Company?
Well, it's so everyone has their favorite Sondheim shows, and for a really long time, my favorite was Sweeney Todd or Sunday in the Park, depending on how much I like humans that day.
Right. And some days it's hard to like humans. It is
exactly.
True.
So it's just everyone deserves to die. I'm just gonna go slashing some throats, but metaphorically. But Company was always one of those shows that, I first encountered it in the Raul Esparza filmed version. It was on Netflix for a while. I think it was 11 years ago I first saw it. And I was like, oh, this show's kind of weird and kooky, but the songs are fantastic. I'll just listen to the album. And so I'll never have to watch the rest of the book scenes, because they're so cringy and 60s and kind of misogynist and make me feel really uncomfortable. I'll just ignore half of the show and just focus on the music, because the music is some of the best Sondheim ballads. But it kept on coming up in my career as a journalist. The Neil Patrick Harris did the New York Philharmonic version.
Right.
And during the pandemic, I watched the Adrian Lester version from the West End. And even though I never said I never really liked the show that much, but but something about it just kept sticking in my head. And then Marion Elliott's revival was announced when it was a woman. And then suddenly I was like, oh my God, I have to see this. I feel like this will finally open the show for me, and I'll finally understand why people like it. And then I saw it, and so it came to Broadway with Katrina Lenk, and I saw it 3 times. And I read and interviewed I read a lot about the creation of the show. I interviewed most of the people working on the show. And now I've just become a Company obsessive because of Marion Elliott.
So it's safe to say that you do like the show now.
I do like the show now. Like, I have a fanatical love for this show now. And I'm also 34 years old now. So
okay. So that birthday is coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as I got older, it went from this thing about older people who are weird and unhappy to, oh, I'm not one of those older people.
That's also weird and unhappy. Yeah. Do you feel then that with Marianne Elliott's version of Company, does it make you appreciate the previous versions at all? Or is it really just her vision that you're a fan of?
I think it's really her vision of it, because the biggest criticism of Bobby as a character in Company is the fact that he's kind of a cipher. He's not an active character. He's a passive character. He doesn't really make any active decisions. And he really doesn't say much. Like, most of the comedy and most of the lines in the show are from his married friends or his girlfriends. And the one time that Bobby has a monologue, it's this creepy monologue about being in Miami and not having sex with someone and being really sad about it. It's just gross and weird. Like, he's just a gross character and weirdly passive. Like, what kind of, it didn't feel realistic, I think. And that is why a lot of people have debated who is Bobby? What is Bobby's motivation? Is Bobby gay? Is Bobby commitment phobic? No one really knew, and that because it wasn't in text. But then with Marianne Elliott's version, when you turn Bobby into a woman, then you understand why it is that Bobby is so passive, because like, I have been that third person in a conversation with my married friends where they're just talking to me about their relationship or bickering with each other, and I'm just that third person just standing there and not feeling like I shouldn't say anything because this isn't about me, but I'm just this uncomfortable witness in the room because they need someone to be there. And most of the time, that person is a woman who can't say anything, because women are conditioned to just be the nurturer and be the person who just soaks in everyone else's problems. And so Bobby being that kind of nurturing, empathetic figure who doesn't have a voice for herself until the very end of the show, that's a powerful thing, because then her arc isn't about, oh, I am commitment phobic and now maybe I want a relationship. Bobby's arc in the revival is, I don't know how to stand up for myself and assert what I want, and what do I want, to finally figuring out what it is that she wants and who she even is in this moment in her life. And so, and considering the culture of, women being put out to pasture by the time they're 35, and there not being a lot of media representation of that struggle and that ambivalence. Like, the 2022 Company was basically the thing that I needed to process this phase in my life.
I think you brought up some really great points here. I've only been able to see the production once, because I live on the opposite side of the continent and in a different country. But so it's not as easy for me to get to Broadway. But I thought that this production does, like the London and when it transferred onto Broadway, what it does so well, because Bobby has changed genders into a woman, that ticking time clock, whether you want to call it a biological clock or like that ticking clock, I thought that metaphor just hit me more than in any other production of Company, because when we really bring it down to, men can have children, can have a family at really any stage of their life if that is what they want. Whereas women, if it is children and that family life that they want, there is an endpoint. There is a literal endpoint that they're coming up to. So I thought that ticking clock idea, I thought the TikTok ballet re-envisioned, I thought was done so well.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. It was such a brilliant piece of dramaturgy, because it is like, for Company, if you don't know Company, so the original TikTok on Broadway was this ballet.
It's Marta, I think.
Yeah. And she just does like a dream ballet while Bobby and April are having sex. That's a sequence. But in the new revival on Broadway, like, it was this dream sequence where Bobby and Matt, there's like a bunch of different versions of Bobby, and they're all living out different storylines, potential storylines for her. So it's like Bobby as a mother, Bobby as a wife, Bobby as a single woman in her 50s. I mean, no, sorry. In her 70s, because Patti LuPone was doing that, and that was delightful. It externalized what is going on in Bobby's head in a way that previous versions didn't. And I've had to give credit to Marion Elliott for conceptualizing that sequence, because it's all dance and movement and very little book. But yeah, I do agree with you on the ticking time clock, and I think it also adds like a dramatic weight to it, because and not to say that men can't be pressured in their 30s to have be married and have children, but I think for women in particular, because society, they want to take away your bodily autonomy, and they want to reduce you to just being like a baby machine. Like, that pressure is so much heavier when you're a woman, and that pressure to settle down, even if you're successful, because no one thinks you'll be able to be happy. Like,
yeah, that's the other part. It's like, you have to do this or else you won't be happy in your life.
Yeah. And I think men get some of that, but I think it's more like equally distributed throughout your lifetime.
The other thing that keeps coming back, and we talked about this a little bit when we did the company season on this show, because of Marion Elliott's vision of this, she decides, of course, to bring it into essentially present day. We're in the late 2010s, I should say. Like, that's when this show is set. The original was very 70s, like it was very much stuck in that 70s. And I think some of it works, some of it feels a little clunky to me, if I'm being honest. But it's like, I understand why, right? If we were to stick it still in the 70s and reverse the genders, I don't think it would work necessarily, just because of some of the other added societal things that were going on. But I do like the updated versions of her friends, and like, these are not just like white people, for instance, that we were interacting with. So I don't know, is there anything that you enjoyed about, I guess, that like bringing it up into like a more modern day version of this show?
Yeah. What I really liked was the fact that some of the genders were reversed in the couples. And so, like, the pot scene, which is the scene that directly precedes Wait for Me. I mean, sorry, Someone is Waiting. Oh, my God. I've been thinking about Hadestown lately, too. So,
sure, yeah.
So the scene preceding Someone is Waiting is a pot scene between Jenny and David, where Jenny's the uptight one who doesn't want to, smoke pot. And in the revival, the genders are reversed. And so David is now stay-at-home dad, and Jenny is now a working mom. And I feel like that kind of helps fix the unintended misogyny in the original script, where all of the women are kind of it's like either all of them are like kind of emotional and kind of like eccentric and a little crazy or motherly, or like the women aren't as fully realized as the men, because the men are the ones who say, "Oh, Bobby, you may not want to be married," or they're the one expressing ambivalence about the entire thing, whereas the women are the ones trying to uphold the patriarchy and uphold the institution of marriage. And that just feels so regressive, because in 2022 everyone is ambivalent about marriage. 50% of marriages end in divorce. No one's getting married these days, and so continue that dynamic would have been regressive. And so I really appreciate the thought process behind that, and I really appreciated not making a woman, uptight and neurotic, and allowing men to have some of those characteristics, because that's realistic.
Yeah, there's a more, I don't know, what I'm trying to say. It's more encompassing, I think, of the real world nowadays, rather than it just being like one thing, one type of character. Now both genders have an opportunity to, or all genders have an opportunity to experience the fullness of neuroticism, instead of just being one.
Exactly.
I said this when I first watched it, but I always want to give a call out to Jennifer Samard, who I think is so brilliant in this production. I think she's so wonderful. I want everything to happen for her going forward.
Oh my God, like, she just eats that scene, metaphorically, because she can't eat. Scene in that part of the comedy, but it was just the way she delivered it. Like, the storyline about a woman dieting is so overplayed, but she just gave it such a freshness. and such a thorniness that I so appreciate it.
Just to answer some other quick questions here, was Company your first introduction to Sondheim, or were you already a Sondheim fan before you came across Company?
Oh, no. I had been one for a few years. I mean, I really didn't grow up, loving musical theater. I really found it corny for the most part. And
Sure.
I was never a theater kid. Like, I really side-eyed the theater kids because as an introvert, that kind of, energy.
We can say they're a bit much. They're a bit much sometimes.
It was a lot. But then I saw Phantom of the Opera, which is also about an introvert, and and that was a thing that got me into musical theater. And then,
sorry, was that a stage production, or are we talking the movie?
Oh, stage production. And then I was exposed to Sweeney Todd. Well, I took a musical theater history class in my first year of undergrad, and that really gave me like a holistic view of and a deep appreciation for the art form as a distinct American art form. And that was when I got my first exposure to Sondheim. I think we listened to Merrily in that class. We listened to Sunday, and it was Sunday where I was like, "Oh, this is weird." I don't like it, and I don't know why I like it, because like Sondheim is like so dissonant, and you really have to sit with it for a long time before you can really appreciate it. But something about Sunday just really stuck with me. I think that's the brilliance of Sondheim. Like, he writes people who are really ambivalent and who are outsiders and who don't know how to interact with the world, and he just lets them be that instead of trying to fix them.
Yeah, I'm definitely biased here. Of course, I do an entire podcast about the man, but what consistently impresses me is taking, like you said, like either it's ambivalence or like introvertedness or like sadness, and with like 2 lines or 3 lines, like completely sums up their worldview or like this emotional truth that I felt before. I'm like, oh my God, that just like pierced me with using very like direct language to it as well. It's like this huge magic trick he continually does throughout his career.
Yeah. It's like, I think it was Finishing the Hat. That was like, I'm not a painter, but I have been obsessive in that way. And this is me like at 18 years old listening to Finishing the Hat for the first time. And I'm like, I'm not a painter, but I've been obsessive in that way in order to escape the world and in order to figure out a way to make sense of it.
There is that line that always I remember from that was like, you are going to be in this painting, right? I just can't spend time with you, but your influence is going to show up in here, which is like any of my other creative pursuits, like my own writing, that kind of stuff. I always feel the same way. It's like, your influence is going to show up in this work. Like, you are going to be a part of this. It's just like, but I can't be with you or be a part of you right this second. Right?
Yeah. Or like, you're always looking through the window while you're painting the hat. And like, for me as a writer, I'm like, I'm always looking at the outside world. I can't be outside because I gotta be inside.
Bring it back to Company here then. We are talking about Someone Is Waiting.
Yeah.
This is, well, I was going to say it's an interesting song, which is kind of a dumb thing to say, but it is utilizing all the characters that we've kind of met here already. I'll also be the first one to admit, I don't know what it is about this show. I can never remember what any of the characters' names are.
Same.
Like, I remember Joanne and I remember Amy/Jamie. That's basically the 2 characters I can remember. And it's like, I always have to look up what everybody else's name is. But using those, like, I want this amalgamation, this like perfect person, human in my life. It's a combination of all these people that are within my life. But I was going to ask you, what is leading up into this song? Like, what is the moment that starts this song off?
Okay, so this song is interesting because, well, first, fun fact, I the first time I saw this performed for the revival was actually Katrina Lenk did it at a public, not public. Katrina Lenk did it at a press event. And I was like, oh, interesting. She picked this song. Why would she pick it? And she just kept performing it at different, public performances of the show. Like, she did it on Tiny Desk. So I'm like, what is it about this song? What I realized was first, I think this is the no tea, no shade, but I think this is the one song that at the time she could perform in a way that wouldn't get her eviscerated by the Sondheim fanatics for not hitting all the notes.
Right.
The way they want them to be hit, because I love her performance in the show. It's a very atypical Rex Harrison type of performance.
Right.
This is not there's not a vocal performance. But anyway, so Someone Is Waiting is the first solo that Bobby has in the show. And it's the first time that Bobby is able to actually speak in length about what it is that he/she may want. And it takes place right after the pot scene where Jenny or David, depending on which versions, one spouse is uptight, is having pot for the first time. The other spouse is kind of disappointed that they married an uptight person. And then they go into Have I Got a Guy for You, which is all of Bobby's friends telling them that, oh,
right,
I know people you can meet who are really kinky and who are really exciting. And and you'll have all this great sex. Don't get married.
I know. It's like, that's the overriding thing. It's like, this, she's going to be great. She's going to be awesome, but don't get married. Never marry. Like, that's the overriding thing from the friends. For most of them, I should say. Hey everyone, just Kyle breaking into the conversation to tell you about some of the people and organizations that help this show continue to go. If you'd like to help support the show for absolutely free, you can do so by giving a rating and review on whatever app you listen to podcasts in. That's of course greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to help monetarily, which will only help to grow and make this show better, you can do so over at our Patreon page. Please do not donate if it impacts you negatively financially. Also need, of course, to give a huge thank you to the God That's Good tier from Patreon of Jack, Todd, Carrie, Louise, Christopher, and Stephen. Putting It Together is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. The Alberta Podcast Network promotes and supports Alberta-made podcasts and connects their audiences with Alberta-based businesses and organizations. This week, we are brought to you by Pod Power. With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout out to Is This For Real? Is This For Real is a podcast about various facets of Black life in Edmonton. In the first season of the show, Breaking the Blue Wall, host Omar Salafu explores anti-Black racism and policing and tells stories about policing in schools, accountability in Alberta's policing system, and the impacts of police violence on Black Edmontonians. You can listen to the podcast and read more about each episode at isthisforreal.ca. You can also support the work of these podcasters and future seasons on Patreon. This episode of Putting It Together is also brought to you by Alberta Blue Cross. Life as business owners can be hectic, to say the least. Alberta Blue Cross understands that. They offer flexible health, dental, life, and disability coverage for your employees. Even better, you can let your staff enroll and manage their coverage at any time and on any device. That makes life easier for them and for you. You've got this when it comes to group coverage for your small business, and Alberta Blue Cross has got your back. To learn more and explore your options, head on over to ab.bluecross.ca. I'm going to call an audible here. I had the whole Rosalie Craig broken up into sections. I'm going to try and just do the tiny desk performance here and see if this is going to work.
Okay.
So
do it.
And we'll listen to the first 30 seconds of her performance.
Someone is waiting, sweet as David, funny and charming as Peter, Larry.
Okay, so I'll pause there for just a second. What do you want to say about those opening lines?
They're different than the original opening lines, not just because the names are different, but this is the biggest thing I wanted to bring up about the song, which is the adjectives are different. The way that she describes each of the men is really distinct from the way that male Bobby described his female friends. And I had the notes on my screen.
Sure.
Yeah. So the original is someone is waiting, cool as Sarah, easy and loving as Susan. And so you're going from, I was an English major, so this is going to go full on English major here.
Oh, good. That's what I have my degree in, so that's perfect.
Yeah. cool, easy, and loving to sweet, funny, and charming. And later, Bobby describes her male friends as warm and loyal and cute and happy versus male Bobby, soft and skinny and blue-eyed and sweet and tender. And so, like, notice those differences in adjectives.
And I think we talked about this. Well, not we. I talked about this when we were going through that season as well, which I was never 100% clear on, is whether or not Sondheim himself made these changes. Like, I'm assuming, I'm 99% sure he would be the person who wrote them, but why he felt compelled that he needed to change the adjectives. And I can't ask him anymore, so I don't know.
But it's interesting because, like, for me reading this, it seems like the men, when female Bobby is describing the men in her life, they are given more dimension. And like, it's a mix of physical traits and like character traits, like loyal and sweet and funny, versus when male Bobby is describing his female friends, it's all of these traits that men use to describe women, but aren't exactly accurate to who women actually are. Like, he wants an easy, cool, and loving, sweet woman.
Right.
And it's very and it's like, it's very physical and it's very surface, versus female Bobby wants like a deeper connection.
Yeah, that's what she's searching for. She wants that connection. I mean, I guess it's not that the male Bobby didn't, like, through the rest of the show. Like, that is in part what Being Alive is all about. Is they're searching for that connection. But I think these lyrics tie more into that theme. Yeah,
and I think the lyrics, but it's also about like what kind of person Bobby is looking for. And I think, with male Bobby, it's the beginning of the show, and all his male friends just said, "Oh, you can still totally get laid. Go get laid." And so Bobby is thinking about women on that kind of surface level of, the woman I want will also be easy and won't argue with me and will love me no matter what. Versus the contrast in the new version where Bobby's female friends are saying, go get laid. And Bobby is thinking, oh, maybe I want that, but maybe I also want like a deeper connection with someone. I want someone who is loyal, and I want someone who will hold me and who will love me and who is a happy person. And like, the way that she describes men is a lot more respectful than the way that male Bobby describes women.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Let's take the next little bit here.
Someone is waiting, cute as Jamie, sassy as Harry, and tender as Paul. Would I know him even if I met him? Have I missed him? Did I let him go?
Okay, I'm going to pause there again. This is the part, honestly, that always messes with my brain, because I've actually had this exact same thought, right? You have this perfect person in your head. It's like, well, have I met them already and I just like disregarded them as an option? Or I didn't even talk to them. Like, I just walked past them on the street somehow and they were like the perfect match for me. So the sentiment here, at least, is something that I've felt in my own life.
Yeah. And the sentiments, and would I know him even if I met him? Like, that's the same as in the old version with different pronouns, of course. And so I think, but that is one of those things that's beautiful about the song, both versions, is this sense that we've all had, if we're still single by a certain age, of, did I already meet this person and did I miss out and now I'm never going to be happy? So it's like this very human feeling.
For sure. We do get into this whole thing again of like cute as Jamie, sassy as Harry, tender as Paul, but that is different, right? In the previous one, which is warm, frantic, and touching.
Frantic is an interesting word too. Like, I'm not.
Yes. I want someone who's frantic. I'm searching for someone who's frantic.
It's just always
that is a weird
a little
modifier.
bit stressed out. That's really gonna add some spice to my life.
I do want to know if there has been anyone on any dating profile that's listed that. Looking for a frantic person. That is the number one.
because those words are used to describe Amy, and at the end, he also calls her crazy in the original.
Yes.
And I'm like, poor Amy. Poor Amy. She's just ambivalent. Like, why is that crazy?
I mean, definitely when we get to Getting Married Today, you can see definitely whether it's Amy or Jamie, there's a bit of franticness to them. But I don't know if crazy is a word that I would have used, even for female Amy. Like, I don't know if I would say crazy is the word that I would use. She's, I think, legitimately terrified that she's making a huge decision in her life. And like everyone does on their wedding day almost. It was like, is this the right decision? Am I doing this for the right reasons?
Yeah, and you only see Amy in that one scene. You don't know what she's like in the rest of her life. And the wedding day, if you've ever followed a bride on her wedding day, it's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. It's also the most stressful day. Like, I don't know any bride on her wedding day who wasn't stressed out and who didn't eat the entire day.
Just like the entire cake in my face. Yeah.
The only thing they eat is the cake.
The other one is, I think it's a little weird in a way with like the updated version, is the reference to Larry. Because in the one scene that we share, we see her talking with Joanne, of course, and that leads into the ladies who lunch. And Larry is there, but I don't know. It never feels like there really is that deep connection between the two. He always just feels like this is Joanne's husband who kind of shows up. I don't see him being like this deep connection to her. Even in the male Bobby, I don't feel like Larry is really that super important in his life. Yeah,
well, I mean, in the original song, the Larry lines or he says Joanne.
Yeah,
and like there's no adjective there. It's just they just stand by themselves as Joanne does. But I think
it's true.
But yeah, I think with Larry, I like in the revival, he does show up in all the group numbers. And the interesting thing is this is for everyone who hasn't seen the revival. In the revival, Joanne sees Larry and Bobby having a discussion about who's going to pay the check. And like he's very tender towards Bobby and he pats her hair and she clocks that. And then when Bobby comes back to the table, Joanne says, I think you and Larry should have an affair.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're just trying to set up the attraction, or I mean, not even the attraction, just like the connection between Larry and Bobby a little bit. So like that line doesn't come out of left field.
I'm a broken record on this. And I know that Sondheim and other creators of the show are so adamant to never let this happen. So I'm assuming that their estates will never let it happen either. I kind of wish that in the new version, Joanne just tried to seduce Bobby still, like it was just her trying to seduce her. I mean, that gives Larry literally almost nothing to do then in the show other than be part of the group numbers. So I kind of understand why maybe the other choice was made. But I feel that there could be a more like fluid Bobby as the main character too, where it's like there's men and women in her life that she's trying to make a choice between. Yeah,
that definitely. That's definitely been a criticism, and I really agree with it. I think a bunch of us on theater Twitter were like, what if Jen Kalila played like one of Bobby's boyfriends or girlfriends? And we thought, oh my God, that is so brilliant. She could play any of those roles. And I think it's one of those things like maybe like in the revival, like 10 years from now, we'll finally have a queer Bobby.
When they finally make that movie version, that's what they'll push for. Oh
God, no. They will not ruin another Sondheim show with the movie version.
I'm pretty sure that Into the Woods is the best possible thing that they could have made. I'm lying. He says through gritted teeth. Okay, we'll continue on here.
A Peter sort of Larry, a David kind of Paul. Wait for me, I'm ready now, if you exist at all. Someone will hold me safe as David, silly and solid as Peter. Larry.
So there's Larry again.
I love the way she says it, though.
Yeah, I know. It's very seductive and sexy.
Well, I mean, speaking of, the way she says Larry, like the way that Katrina Lang plays Bobby, I think that was like, she's such an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And like the choices she makes, like the way, even when she's not speaking during the show, like the way she physically reacts to what the couples are saying, or and the certain way she says certain lines, like she's able to bring out the character within some very opaque material.
I mean, yeah, that's one of I think the big positives of Katrina Lenk is that she is very much acting while she's singing, which is the thing I keep coming back to. And I'm not calling out anyone specific here, but there can be sometimes where people are picked or cast who are beautiful singers, but aren't able to like act the role properly. I say properly. Whereas I'll always take someone who can act and kind of sing the role, whether they can sing it beautifully but can't act the role. That's kind of always what I'm hoping for when I see a production.
Yeah, same, especially for a character where there's really not much there. And so you as the actor have to give them an arc, add some motivation, add some personality. And I think like for me, like I'd want to hang out with her Bobby. Her Bobby seems fun.
I mean, that is the biggest call out that I totally agree with is like, this might be the first Bobby that I was like, yeah, I'd totally hang out and be friends with her. Where any of the other versions of scenes, like, you seem very depressed all the time. That would be very, I don't know, I'd be very tired hanging out with you all the time.
Yeah, like you can see why like she's the one everyone wants to hang out with, even when they're married.
100%. I believe there are some verbs here again that are changed. So strong as David, silly and solid like Peter is what the original is. Soft as Jenny, skinny and blue-eyed as Amy. That's what the original is. So yeah, why can't one of the men be blue-eyed is I guess what I'm asking. Yeah, skinny and blue-eyed like Jamie.
Yeah, but it's a choice to like go from skinny to silly or like from physical traits to personality traits.
That is so true though, right? Yeah, the original here is very clearly looking at the outside of the person rather than the inside of the person.
I just want to wake up next to someone who's soft and pretty.
And they have to have blue eyes. That is, I don't know why this calls out to me so much. It's like they have to be skinny and blue-eyed, just like Amy is.
Okay, Bobby, like you can only date white women. We get it.
Yeah, like we understand. I know that other people have somewhat made fun of the whole Jenny is Joanne, like a Susan sort of Sarah, or in the new one, whether they say it's a Peter sort of Larry, a David kind of Paul. I understand the sentiment. It's not that I don't understand the sentiment, but it's like there's a lot of like random names and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the thing is like you haven't really spent that much time with these people at that point to even know what it is she means.
What does this actually mean, right?
Yeah, but I don't think you actually need to. I think it's the sentiment holds of you just want to be able to like pick and choose all the different boyfriends you ever had in your life. And if you put them together, that'll be the person you marry. But then the catch-22 is that person doesn't exist.
That's the big caveat to all of this. Again, we already mentioned being alive here, but like someone will wake me, I mean, is a clear like call forward allusion to what she's eventually going to sing about to kind of close out the show.
Yeah, but it's also like being alive also has, the beginning was like someone to hold you too close, so someone to hurt you. So I think this song is like a very, like she hasn't had her full realization yet.
Correct. She's not quite there.
Yeah, of the person that you end up with will not be perfect, and you have to be okay with that. Like she's still in the, if I find the perfect person, I will do it, but they don't exist, and that's the arc in the show, her realizing that.
All right, let's take a listen to the end here.
Someone will wake me warm as Jamie, loyal as David, and loving as Paul. Did I know him? Have I waited too long? Maybe so, but maybe so has he. My loyal David, loving Paul, cute Jamie, happy Peter, handsome Larry. Wait for me, I'll hurry. Wait for me, hurry. Wait for me, hurry.
that's how we end.
And another 100 people just got
some reiteration of stuff that we've already heard in the song, but the thing that always like jumps out at me here is how it ends, which is like, hurry, wait. Like there's two kind of thought ideas there. But again,
I like that, yeah.
It's so true. It's like, I want to get here, but wait for me, please. Like, I have to be ready as well.
Yeah, and I also think, it's kind of like in Haste, like, wait for me, I'm coming. But the funny thing is, like, in the revival, I don't remember if it's also the same in the previous version. Like, after that last line, wait for me, the music immediately picks up to another 100 people. And so, like, you just got 3 songs back to back in the show that there's no pause in between. And I feel like most of the time, the middle song is always like, okay, when is he going to stop singing so we can get to the really good song in the show?
Right.
And I think what they're trying to do here is like really emphasize this moment for Bobby, especially because like the song is so short and it's so smushed in between 2 other things that I wonder if the decision to have Katrina Lang perform it repeatedly outside of the context of the show, it was a way to have it and like make it like pinpoint it in the audience's mind.
Yeah. I know it's such a beautiful melody anyways, as we end here. This is such a Sondheim thing as well, which is like almost going one more line longer than you think it's going to go. She sings wait for me 4 times. First time she says I'll hurry. Second and third time she just says hurry. And then the 4th time she doesn't say anything. So it's just wait for me. And there's like really no resolution to that thought phrase. So it's just like almost gets hung in the air. So it needs the music to kind of like wrap everything up for you. Yeah.
Or like, no, like that downbeat is then picked up again by another song. Like she hasn't finished her thought yet because she doesn't know what the end of that is, which is such a brilliant musical thing.
For you, when we take a look at like the entire score of Company, is Someone Is Waiting, where does that fall for you? Is it like top 5, middle 5, bottom 5? Like where would it fall in your list, do you think?
Oh, I think it's somewhere in the middle for me, because it's like, of course, it's not Being Alive or Marry Me, which is like
sure
pinpoints, but it is an important character moment that needs to be there so that you introduce what Bobby's arc is going to be. Right. But the song is so damn short that you're just like, wait, we just really got started. Where is the rest of it? So it's an incomplete thought, which I know is purposeful, but it also makes it kind of unsatisfying.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the first bit of Company is a lot of that, though, is like, oh, this is kind of sad or melancholy. I guess melancholy is like the right word for it, is what it feels like, until we finally get people's revelations, I guess, later on into like Act 2, and that's when things start to all kind of make sense and fall into place. I've been asking this kind of like mini season we're going through here. Is there a Sondheim show you have not seen live that you would love to?
Oh, shoot. Okay. I gotta go through this. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Because the fun thing about like covering New York theater for the past decade is like, I think I've made my
seen a lot
through most of them. Oh wait, no, haven't seen Funny Thing Happened.
Yeah, this is weirdly enough. I came across this on Reddit the other day. They were like, what is a revival you think should be done? And that was my choice. I think it's time to do another Funny Thing Happen on the Way to the Forum revival. Just like last time, like you can play around too, just like this show does with like gender roles, because Whoopi Goldberg came in and replaced Nathan Lane last time. So it's like, why not? Like just open it up. Do whatever you want. Who cares? Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's like most Sondheim fanatics, especially if they're of a certain age, like it's like I've heard it's one of like Sondheim's funniest lyrically, and I'm like, what like experience? I do not want to listen to an album first because.
Oh, I see. So you have not. If you don't know the score, that's interesting.
No, I want to be surprised.
I am. This is my opinion, so just take this with a grain of salt. For me, people I think sleep on the Forum score. I think the score is really great. I do agree a little bit with Sondheim's own self-criticism about the show, is that the score is sort of fighting with like the book because it is so farce-like. So at the end of the show, I forget what it is. It's like 25 minutes without any songs, because like once you get into the end of a farce, you don't want it to stop so someone can sing. You kind of just have to get to the end. So sometimes it feels like it's just like, oh, we're breaking away from the farce for someone to sing so we can get back to the farce. But super funny. There's some super funny lyrics in it.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things where you're going to a Sondheim show, so it's like, why aren't you looking forward to the songs? Like, that's what you're eating for. It's like, yes, sure, farce. We love a comedy, comedy tonight. But don't you want the songs? Why are you complaining about having to hear some Sondheim songs?
Pretty Little Picture is great, as what I keep pitching to people. Is it the funniest, like, laugh out loud? No, but the lyrics themselves are so compact and perfect. Diep, thank you so much for joining me here today. Yeah. This has been great. If people wanted to, see what you're up to, follow you online, what's the easiest way for them to do so?
I have a website. You can read things I've written, dieptran.com, but I'm most prolific on Twitter, so follow me there at Deep Thought. Oh, can I add one more note?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. So, as you know, I'm a nerd for the company Revival. And so what helped me form my thoughts for this episode was actually these emails between Stephen Sondheim and Marion Elliott about the conception for the different, revisions in the show, including Someone Is Waiting and including changing Amy to Jamie and the development of that idea. And so if anyone wants to read that, it is fascinating. Would read the whole book about it.
Where did you find them?
Deadline. So I'll send you the link and you can...
I hacked into their emails is what I did.
Yeah. So that is available online. And Marion Elliott basically summed up my opinions about the differences between male and female Bobby.
What did she say
about the song in particular? Because the way Sondheim basically says, does Bobby have the same yearning attraction for the husbands that Bobby had for the wives? And Marion Elliott responds, maybe it's worth thinking of her feelings as a deep yearning through love, less of a sexual desire, more about warmth, safety, reliability. Real love compared to the crude sex that the women have just been singing about in Have I Got a Guy for You?
Right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So it's one of those things where it's like I had noticed the adjectives were different and I'm like, is that intentional? And then I read the emails. I'm like, oh, it is. Because
1,000%
male Bobby was just thinking about those women in a physical, sexual way.
Well, I think, what's so fascinating about that is how much intentionality there was in the making of this. I had Joel Fram on as a guest here, who was the music director of this updated version.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing. It's like, when you change someone's gender on stage, their vocal range also changes. So they had to like redo certain songs, and they had to consider as like, how do we change this song effectively, especially with the song that follows it? Like there was a lot of intentionality that went through like lyric changes, song changes, scoring changes, but not make it to be a different show. It still has to be company at the end of the day.
It's also one of those things where it's like that's the trap when you update a show. It is like some of it's not going to translate well, and so the fact that they were willing to do like an top to bottom basically rewrite of the entire thing, like it just shows like just how difficult it is to like change something that's already been established, and to try and update revivals to make them more relevant. To update musicals to make them more relevant. Like musicals and other pieces of art are of their time. And
very much so, yeah. I think that's what even Sondheim's like opinion was that I've heard from other people, which is when he was approached and he was like totally on board with them like changing things and stuff, but he was very adamant, like the main theme still has to be the same. And I think it is like that yearning for connection, the feeling that you're losing time, like that all has to be the same, or just write your own show, right? So the themes have to stay the same even when you're updating things. Otherwise, just go write your own show and have that be your thing.
Yeah, it's like this attempt to make older things new again. Like, what are the choices you have to make in order to do that. It's not just like putting them in modern clothing and then having it be it.
Right. That's so true. They're robots now, whatever. It's the future.
Yeah. It's like company in 2050, but everyone's a robot. And that's why I can't make a connection.
Oh, you know what? You might have an idea here. This is a $1 million idea. All right, sorry. Thank you, Diep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. You can send emails to puttingittogetherpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow Sondheim Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And you can support the show on Patreon by going to patreon.com/puttingittogetherpodcast. Thank you to the Alberta Podcast Network, to Pod Power, and to the Alberta Blue Cross this week. Putting It Together is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts from. Consider subscribing so that you never miss an episode. Next week, we're going to probably Sondheim's most beloved show, The Frogs. It's only a play, as they say. As always, a big thank you to the great Chris Taniguchi, who designed the podcast artwork, and to Nick Driscoll for composing our theme music. Well, we've reached the end of our episode. Yes, I know. Goodbye for now.